You know that feeling when you're about to hit play on a new movie and the dialogue sounds like it's coming from a tin can, even though the picture looks gorgeous? I was in that exact spot last weekend, scrolling through endless soundbar options while my roommate kept asking if the thing was worth the money. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I wanted a system that would finally let us hear every whisper in a thriller without cranking the volume to an ear-splitting level, but I also didn't want to gamble on something that would end up gathering dust after a few weeks. That's why I spent a few days digging into the Sonos Arc Ultra paired with the Sub 4 subwoofer. I watched a ton of Hansen videos, read the official Sonos setup guides, and skimmed through the community forums to see what real owners were saying about day-to-day use. The big question I kept asking myself was simple. Will this upgrade actually make our regular movie night feel like a mini theater, or is it just a pricey way to add a little extra bass? Let's break down what I found and figure out if it's the right fit for you before you hand over that cash. First off, the thing that makes the Arc Ultra stand out is its speech enhancement engine. Sonos calls it surround yourself in the story, and in practice it means the dialogue stays crisp even when the soundtrack is booming. I tested it with a recent crime drama that has a lot of low-key murmurs, and I could actually follow the suspect's whispered confession without turning the volume up. That's a huge win for anyone who hates the classic "I can't hear what they're saying" problem that plagues most thin-panel TVs. Now the bass. The separate Sub 4 is wireless, which sounds great on paper, but can be a pain if you end up with a sub that's fighting the room's acoustics. In my living room, roughly 2,015 feet with a mix of hardwood and a plush rug, the sub settled nicely in the corner without any rattling. The low end felt deep enough to give explosions that boom you expect from a theater, yet it never overpowered the mids. If you have a smaller apartment, you might find the sub a bit too enthusiastic. You could always set the bass level lower in the Sonos app, but the system does assume you have a space that can absorb those frequencies. One of the biggest selling points Sonos touts is the perfectly tuned for the room feature. When you launch the app, it walks you through a quick true play calibration. It emits test tones and uses your phone's mic to gauge how sound reflects off walls, windows, and furniture. The process took about 2 minutes, and the result was a noticeable balance. The center channel stayed forward for dialogue, while the left and right channels filled the space without any glaring hotspots. For anyone who isn't a tech nerd, this is a relief. You don't have to manually tweak EQ sliders to get a decent soundstage. Streaming and TV connectivity is another area where the Arc Ultra shines. It has built-in HDMI ERC, which means you get a single cable connection to your TV, and the soundbar can pass through high-resolution audio formats like Dolby Atmos. I paired it with a 2022 Samsung QLED that supports eARC, and the experience was seamless. No lip-sync issues, and the Atmos objects from a recent sci-fi title felt like they were moving around the room rather than just coming from the front. If your TV only has an optical out, you'll still get great sound, but you'll miss the full Atmos immersion. So, if you have a modern TV, you're good. Otherwise, you might be limited to stereo or basic surround. Voice control is baked in with Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. I tried asking it to play my favorite podcast while the TV was on, and it switched sources without dropping the volume. They use your voice, promise holds up, but it's worth noting that the microphone can pick up background noise if you're in a loud room. It's not a deal breaker, just something to keep in mind if you plan on using it as your primary smart speaker. Now, let's talk about who should actually buy this. If you're someone who watches a lot of movies, binge watches series with heavy dialogue, or enjoys gaming with an emphasis on positional audio, the Arc Ultra Plus Sub 4 is a solid investment. The combination gives you a clear front channel for speech, a spacious surround feel thanks to the virtualized rear channels, and enough low end to make explosions feel satisfying. It's also great for families that want a unified audio system for music streaming. The Sonos ecosystem means you can push the same track to other Sonos speakers in the house with a tap. On the flip side, if you live in a studio apartment or you're looking for a budget upgrade, you might want to skip it. The price point is steep, and the subwoofer, while wireless, still needs a power outlet.